Greetings from Sun City, Arizona, right off the executive golf course. It's a sunny, bright day. You too can enjoy the sunshine if you move to Sun City, Arizona. How are you all? I love you all. I love you so much. I'm glad you're here. So much. You know, one of the biggest mysteries in all of spirituality is how to find out what you are. Who are you really? What are you really? We start off as ordinary bozos at age 20 or 15 or 50. And we say, this life I'm living is shit. What are we doing? Going to the fucking office every day, working in a store every day, working as an accountant or a salesperson, or the director of some project, and not liking our jobs. We say, why am I doing this? Who am I really? I know that when I have a job, I'm a person doing a job. I have some sort of mission in life, which is to complete the job. I go home. I go home to my girlfriend, my wife, my husband, and I know what I am in that role too. Or maybe I have children, and I certainly know the role of a mother or father. But aside from my roles, what am I? Aside from being a student, what am I? Am I my hand? No. My shoulder? No. My legs? No. My whole body? Well, maybe. But there's something else besides your body, isn't there? That's the sense of spirit in you. The sense of being alive. The sense of being sentient or aware. When you're asleep at night, that spirit is not present. At least not to most people, nor is the body. But when we wake up, after the first fraction of a second, when we don't know who or what we are, suddenly we realize, I'm Stevie, lying in bed. Or I'm Vesselina, lying in bed. And you suddenly remember what you have to do that day. I have a job interview. I have to go to the store. We have a big project at work. Then all of a sudden, the whole world comes crashing in, and you're stuck in your mundane world. The one you question. Is your role in that the only thing that is you? Are you something besides all the roles you have in the world? As a husband, wife, lover, worker, employer, news watcher, political consumer. Are you something besides all of these disparate roles that really don't hang together except through you. So what are you? If I were to ask you now, and I will, you don't have to answer. I ask you, what are you? Who are you? Are you consciousness? Are you awareness? Are you intelligence? Are you your mind? Are you an idiot? Are you a main battle tank? Are you a Chevrolet automobile? What are you? Do you have a clue? Have you ever asked yourself that question? What are you? Do you possess a soul? Are you a subject and the world is an object? Have you any idea what you are? Do you even want to know who you are? You have a transcendental existence that goes above the world and beyond death? Or are you too bound by living and dying? Is the spirit contained within the body? Or is the body felt within the spirit? Do these questions mean anything to you? And for the last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been using the analogy of being a baby, still a fetus, mother's uterus. What is his awareness like, or her awareness like, as a fetus in the uterus, in a sac surrounded by fluids, listening to the mother's heartbeat, the voice of others in the room, muffled by 2 inches of flesh, or 3 inches of flesh, or 4 inches of flesh. The sounds of your mother speaking, what do they sound like to the fetus? Is the voice of the mother comforting? Is there an argument with the father? Does the fetus know that there's conflict there? Does it react to the conflict? What does the fetus feel? What does it hear? What does it see? Can't see anything. Locked in all that flesh, there's no light there, but almost everybody sees lights of some sort when their eyes are closed. The nerves in the eyes are active, and they cause flashes of light. Does a fetus feel its body? It's not resting against anything, so it can't feel the pressure of a chair. It hasn't been eating anything, so unless it's ill somehow, its stomach is empty. What does it feel? What is this base state upon which all the rest of its life and experience is based? This is what Robert called the gap. Your experience of yourself, of your own sentience, between thoughts, or when you first wake up in the morning, before you come alive to the awareness that you are, that you exist as a person. This gap is what Nisargadatta called pure beingness. This is awareness in the most basic form, where it's not aware of anything, not even itself. But some energy begins coming out of the gut, arising into the heart, then upwards into the brain. If you're quick enough in the morning when you wake up, you can see this happening. You can feel it happening inside of yourself, the awakening process. The energy comes from your gut and fills your brain, and suddenly you're self-aware. It's morning. I'm in my bed in Sun City, waiting to get up. Maybe I'll just lay here for a few minutes, relax, and just feel the bed. I won't think about what I have to do for the rest of the day. Just in this relaxed state, I'll go back into that hypnagogic state where I don't know that I exist. I'll go back into the gap and be there. This is what Robert Adams advised, and also Nisargadatta. Go into the gap. Go into the pre-mind state, the hypnagogic state. Go back even further than that into the state of forgetfulness of everything. And then you go into sleep, where all awareness disappears. And you can play with this. You go from waking slowly back to sleep, and then you wake up again. And then you go back to sleep. And you can play with that edge, being self-aware on one side and then losing awareness even of yourself. And then you can go further into sleep, losing all awareness whatsoever. 3 states of awareness. One is of nothingness, being not aware at all. The second is just the hypnagogic state of being aware, but not being aware of anything. And then the third is being self-aware, where the sense of I am comes into play. You know who you are, where you are, where the world is, and what you have to do that day. I know this state well, because I remember when I was 14 and my father died, I'd wake up in the morning feeling really good, feeling alive. The full force of my personality and energy was there. And then suddenly I would come into self-awareness and realize I was in my bed and that my father was dead. And I would have to face the whole day with the deadness and heaviness of his death hanging over me. And I would very, very reluctantly enter that world. I would feel the crushing depression and sorrow of that state. But you have to find this for yourself. You have to find the state of non-awareness as a state that you can access. Then, when you've got this state, you can say, is this me? Or is even the sleep state of total unawareness, is that me also? Or what about when I become aware of who I am and what I have to do that day? Is that me too? But no matter how far you look, no matter how hard you look with your inner eye, you will never find an entity inside that is separate from you who is seeking. You is all that there is. Max is all it is in Max's world. Vesselina is all that there is in Vesselina's world. She may see objects and other people, but there's only one Vesselina seeing that. Max seeing that as a completely different universe. Michael seeing that is a completely different universe. Stevie seeing that is a completely different universe. No matter how hard we look inside with our minds, by introverting our inner vision into looking inside towards the subject, no matter what we do, we can never find the subject, because it's the subject who is looking, and the subject itself has no form. As the baby grows up, after it exits the vagina and comes into the world and sees all this bright lights and all this confusion and all the different noise and people laughing or slapping its ass, whatever it's happening to it, it has not the slightest clue as to what's going on. At that point, it's probably not even self-aware except for comfort or discomfort. Has no idea who the mother is. Probably likes resting on the mother's breast because he hears a familiar sound of the mother's heartbeat. And maybe he hears her voice, and although it's very different now, maybe he recognizes it as that familiar voice that provided him so much comfort for 9 months. And maybe he feels happy. Maybe that's why they put a baby on the mother right away. So the baby hears her heart, hears her voice. But after 6 months or so, he begins to recognize external objects as not self. That's mom. And later on, that's dad. There's mother's breast, there's sustenance, and then there's the new addition of food. Maybe at 1 year old, you recognize a cat, the house cat, or a dog. And you begin learning. You learn how to walk, how to speak. Maybe you try to learn how to run. And you keep falling down time after time after time because you have no idea about the mechanics of running. You haven't become self-aware yet enough to understand the mechanics of running. Then about age of 3, for most people in their development, they come to an understanding of what is self. It's what they call an internal object in psychology, which means it's a thought form, a bunch of thoughts that fit together, that attach a name to a body feeling, to an emotional feeling, to the feeling that for consciousness for that person. They add on other things, abilities, preferences, etc. And you go through life adding on to that sense of self. This becomes your identity. By the time you're 10 or 11, you should know who you are. You're a kid in school, you're this, you're that, sports person, etc., all these things that you do. But sometime between being a kid and being a middle-aged adult, the mundane world that has been constructed around you by your parents and society, with all of their rules and ideas and their language, which forms everything, You begin to ask yourself once again, who am I in all of this? Am I this rotten world? Am I this boring world filled with work, filled with heartlessness, only occasional love, but with endless things to do, things to accomplish, things to buy, things to construct, things to move? Or am I something more, or maybe something less? So you start reading books. You read Ramana, you read Robert Adams, you read Nisargadatta, you read Muktananda, or any of the other ones, Osho, so many other ones. Each being seems to speak a different language, has a whole different purpose to life. Some recognize God, some recognize something they call the absolute, which is even above God. Some talk about consciousness as being the only thing. Some talk about consciousness as being an illusion. Some talk about the world as being illusion. Some talk about the world and the body as being real. How to make any sense of this? Who are we to believe? And then Zen people say, mind makes everything. Language makes everything. Language like wall, chair, computer, human, love, gives labels to all of our experiences and thereby builds a world that we can live in that's relatively stable because it's defined in terms of words whose meaning does not change as fast as the world changes. And if suddenly we're able to get rid of the mind, we would see that the world is changing very quickly all the time, everywhere, every time. Everything is always changing, changing, changing. Some things change faster inside the house, some change faster outside the house. If you go outside, there's no constancy anywhere. The sky changes, the trees change their form, leaves fall off, leaves grow, they sway in the breeze. There are insects crawling on the ground, the breeze moves things around on the ground. The amount of light is there depends on the time of day or night. It's constant movement and changing. There's no label that you can affix to the overall scene, except to say something stupid like it's night or day, which really doesn't capture anything. But to totally capture your experience in the moment, you couldn't do it. Because you feel and hear and see so many different things simultaneously, it would take hours to explain all of your experience. And by that time, it would be a new day. Thoughts are so slow to capture the multitudes of things that are happening to you in every moment. So what you should do is just shut up, be still, and feel. Now, I said you can never find an entity inside of yourself, which you can call the self. And I said it was because the self is the seeker is the self. And it's the subject, so to speak. And when the subject meets the subject, something different happens. It's not an object anymore. It comes around and rests in the body. And once again, you're just experiencing the entire world. You grow up learning how to walk and to run, to think, to judge how fast cars are moving so you can safely cross the street. You watch animals move and run. You gauge distances and times. You can follow a train schedule or a bus schedule. You can call an Uber. You can do arithmetic in your head. Maybe you can speak 3 or 4 different languages. All of these things are what you do. The one that understands their name when it's called is you. The one that judges how fast cars are moving and where they're going to be a few seconds in the future is you as you're driving a car. All these talents are added onto you. They're learned behaviors, learned skills. None of them have a form. Learning how fast cars go and to judge where they're going to be, learning to see how fast you can run and where you'll be in 30 seconds, judging where a baseball is going to land, doing a mathematical calculation in your head. All of these things, they're formless. They're all part of your identity, but they're formless. There's no one entity that can be found that does all of these things. If you look inside, these are all skills. They have no form. They're not objects, but they're all part of your identity. You understand what I'm talking about? The essential you that's doing all these calculations, that's doing all these judgments, that's performing all of these tasks, that's making a phone call and speaking and listening and understanding, all of that is you. But none of these talents, none of these skills have a form. There's no central phone exchange inside of you where all of these decisions that are made that can be found and looked at and seen inside of you. You have a million different talents, and none of them are visible. They're things you do, things you think about, things you hear, things you say. None of them are visible by looking within. So when somebody asks you what you are, there's nothing you can say because you don't know. But what if we try something else? Instead of looking within, we feel within. This is the key. This is how you find yourself. Through feeling, not through thinking, not through calculating, not through looking with your inner eye inside that emptiness that forms your inner self. You don't look within yourself, you feel within yourself. You feel for the eye sensation. And when you feel an eye sensation, you can begin to create a sense of self as an inner self, a feeling. The self that we experience is feeling. We gradually feel our bodies. We do body scans from the feet to our ankles, to our knees, to our thighs, to our pelvis, to our stomach, to our heart, to our chest, to our throats, to our heads, to the top of our head. And we scan our bodies all day long for feelings, any kind of sensations, kinesthetic sensations, emotions, anything where feeling is involved. Sexuality, heartbeat, diaphragm movement, the passage of air through our nose into our lungs. the beating of our heart, the feeling of tension in the back muscles, the feeling of pressure of the butt against the chair. And once we begin to feel that sense of self, it begins to form a nucleus around which what I call the sense of self, the manifest self, the feeling body, the subtle body begins to form. You begin to feel energies in your body, either kundalini energies going up the spine or energies inside the body, rotating and circulating. And then out of this come magically a sense of love and devotion, either by the presence of another person in your life who draws that love out of you, excites you, fills your sense of presence with enormous energy, or you fill it by meditation on your feelings, on your emotions. We've gone from finding the emptiness of the self by looking within to now going into the development of the feeling self. It's like a new stage of development where you go from thinking and seeing into feeling. And through feeling, beginning to learn how to love. And here's where the magic comes. When a person is ready, somebody will come into your life. Not necessarily your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or boyfriend, but somebody who touches you very deeply in the heart, your heart, and you come alive to love, to devoted love, to complete surrendered love for the other. It could be a guru. It could be Jesus. It could be Sam from next door, or Martha from up the street, or Grace from Belgium, or Tanya from Russia. And suddenly you're in love. Energies are coursing through your body. They fill your body. Energies run from your heart out to your hands into the world. Energies circulate from your feet to your pelvis, to your heart, to your head. Energies twirl and spin inside of you. They may have colors. You go into great bliss where you don't want to move because you feel so wonderful. You think the slightest amount of movement will break the spell of how wonderful it feels. You feel absolute devotion towards that other person. You feel surrendered to them, that you'd be willing to surrender your life to them. You just want them to hold you or you hold them, to touch their feet and worship them. For to you, they are God. And your worship of them is worshiping the divine. And by worshiping the divine, by loving the divine in them, you feel such ecstatic love that it's barely tolerable. And many times women begin to feel constant orgasms inside, all over their whole body, not centered in the vagina or the womb, but throughout the whole body, orgasmic feelings. It can go on for hours. Men can do it too, but it's much harder for lots of reasons. And now the whole body is waking up. All the chakras are firing in unison. Energies are flowing everywhere. And from deep within you, one day arises the life force in you, as you, arises from your gut, pours up with enormous power and light into your lungs and into your heart, then invades your throat and head and goes upwards into the world, a roaring and rushing of life force, of light, of consciousness, of awareness, of the divine, because it's so powerful. It's an experience you've never even thought of having. So it can't be you. It's got to be another. It's got to be God. The experience is too powerful to be you. And at that point, you as a human have a relationship with the divine, with the universal life force, the life force that's in everybody. And you found it by worshiping the life force in another person, or a cat, or a dog that you love, or a guru, or a lover. From that day forward, your life is always one of joyousness. Even with something heavy falling, it doesn't bother you that much. The death of others doesn't seem so horrendous anymore, because you have seen and felt the divine, and you know a portion of that divine is in you as you. And you and the universal life force develop a relationship. It lives through you and in you. And you feel loved by the life force, by the divine, by God. You feel God's grace wiping you clean of impurities, bad feelings, of lostness and loneliness and confusion. And you abide like a baby, resting on your mother, only this time resting in yourself. And you know who and what you are. You are the life force coming alive. And you can loudly stand up and proclaim, I have come alive out of this dead flesh. I am life. I am the life force. I am the one who's walking in this body, in this world. I'm the one who thinks. I'm the one who hears. I'm the one who listens. And yet I can't be found, but I can do all of these things without finding myself. But I found the totality of what I am, of spirit, by becoming totally embodied in my body, not in my head like most people are, but the totality of my body, all the energies of my body, which are substantial and unbelievably powerful once we get to know them. The key to transcendence, ironically, is found by immersing oneself in one's own body and feeling the body totally, feeling the prickles on our back, feeling the tension in our shoulder muscles, feeling the tension in our neck, and sinking down into our gut, where we become centered in our gut. And when your center of attention is that far away from your head, the mind is like a distant thing that doesn't bother you. So you could get to this place eventually, either by feeling for the sense of self, and then gradually feeling the body inch by inch by inch until you know every molecule and cell in your body. Or the speedier process is if God sends somebody to you to make you love her or him or it. And in the mutual loving comes a surrender for both of you, and you both can realize God. You can both realize the divine, the universal life force that is in you also as a splinter. But you're never separate from the universal life force because it's beating in you with the same resonance it's beating in everybody else. And when you can feel it in another person, as well as you can feel it in yourself, it goes back and forth in resonation. Resonation, yes, it's the word. You resonate with each other in total ecstasy. It's like rejoining God by resonating with the life force in another. You know what devotion to God is then, what surrender to God is like, because that's what you're doing. You're surrendering to God in another person. And in that surrender, you receive everything. You receive the divine. You acknowledge the divine. Now let's listen to chanting for a few minutes, and then we'll have questions and answers. Okay? Well, I can't minimize it. I have to. Here, I can